Hello, today we're making tomato soup. Now this is an interesting classic. It involves tomatoes, of course, different kinds of vegetables like onions and celery, things like that, and also cream. So I'm going to do a little bit of a take on this that's a bit of a sidestep from tradition. I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. And so you flip this around. So what I'm doing here is roasting some Roma tomatoes. Now, they're not the most sweet or savory of tomatoes, so what I'm going to do is roast them. And what I've done, as if you can see here, big pot of water. I've actually, blanched the tomatoes first. Remove their skin so it's easier to mix later. All I've done is to put some olive oil, salt, pepper, paprika, and basil underneath and on top of these tomatoes. And what I'm going to do is roast them for about 25 minutes on 425. I'll show you what they look like when they come out. Now, while the tomatoes are roasting, and by the way, I cut them halfway through the cooking time, I'm putting some olive oil in a pan. And I like to make this a little richer, so I'm going to add a little bit of butter as well. And you can see it's already quite sizzling, so it's quite warm. So what I'm going to do is put in my combination of celery and onions. Let's wet that down. And we're going to ensure it has a good caramelization on it. Alright. Through the magic of camera, we'll come back when it's done. As you can see, this is much more caramelized than before. I'm going to give it another minute. Oh, it's the tomatoes getting ready. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, you can see this is much darker now. I've added some salt to sweat out the onions a little bit more. Some pepper ground, as well as some peppercorns, which give it a little more body, especially when we end up blending it all together. And I said earlier about the tomatoes, when we mix them together, well, what we're going to be doing is going to be pureeing the actual result. So cutting, not so important. Consistency, of course, will be consistency of cook. However, when we add all our ingredients together and blend it, it's not going to make a big difference. Now at this point, I'm just going to add in my chicken stock, and I'm using organic chicken broth. The onions are organic. Ooh, nice. The garlic is organic, as well as the celery. So I'm trying to keep as organic as I possibly can with this recipe. Now, you don't have to, it's up to you, but I find that it tastes a little bit better, actually a lot better, and I find too, if you're health conscious, then this will also help you in that respect. I'm going to stir this around a little bit. We'll take a bit of a pause as this comes to a simmer, and we'll be back in a minute. As you can see, the beautiful tomatoes have come out. See, they're just a little bit bubbly. So I can't do this with two hands. So what I'm going to do is take a quick break. I'm going to stick this in our broth, and we'll go from there. 2 seconds. All right, our tomatoes are in. Just going to give this a stir and bring this up to a simmer. Now we're looking to put a little more spices in here. So I put a little salt and pepper already. Going to put some paprika in here. We might kick this up a little bit with some chipotle, just to give it a little bit of a kick. But for now, we're just going to stir that up, and it's going to simmer for about half an hour. One of the ingredients that thickens this up without using any kind of flour and water mixture or cornstarch is rice. So what I've done is add a couple of tablespoons, depending on how much you've made, a couple of tablespoons of plain white long grain rice. And we're going to cook this for about, like I said, about half an hour, and we'll get back to you to show you what it looks like. By the way, the rice gives it that thickening ingredient, that agent that makes it more of a cream type soup than a regular soup. So now we can see that the soup is simmered. And what I've done is I've tasted this and added a little bit of sugar to it and some more chipotle pepper. I find that I want that smokiness of the chipotle, a little bit of a bite, and I want the mellowness of the sugar. So I put some organic golden sugar in there. Just going to stir this up, and we're almost done. Alright, now I'm going to take my immersion blender, and I'm going to blend this all up till it's smooth. Now I'm going to have to put the camera down, because I only have one hand, and we'll come back in a moment. Alright, now look at that texture. I wish you could smell how good this is. But, sorry, we don't have smell-o-vision yet. Now I'm going to add the main ingredient, the star of the show, is going to be a little bit of cream. So hold on. Oop, here we go. Add a little bit of cream in here. We're going to stir that up. See how beautiful the texture is? Now, this is still hot, so this will incorporate quite nicely. I'm going to turn this back on, because I turn it off while I'm doing the actual blending. I'm just going to put this in so it'll incorporate quite nicely. Now, I think the flavor is quite good at this point. I have enough of my chipotle in there, my salt and my pepper. Now, you can adjust accordingly. Like I mentioned earlier, I put a little bit of sugar in here. Now, one ingredient that I put in here that I forgot to mention is after I had sauteed the onions and the celery, and that had been sweated and caramelized, I added, I'll say 3 to 4 cloves of garlic minced on top of that, and then I added in my broth. Ooh, this looks amazing. Okay, so far so good. Let's give it a taste. So now we have our amazing cream of tomato soup done. So I'm just going to ladle this into a beautiful bowl. A little bit on the side there. I'll put a little extra in here. This is going to be hearty. Okay. Now I'm going to garnish this. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to put a little bit of cream. Hold on. We have the cream over here. Get a little bit of a spoon. Now, I'm going to make this look a little pretty. You know, so see on the little edge here where it has a little bit of the soup? To make a good presentation, you want to just kind of take a napkin or a cloth and just wipe that. Now, doesn't that look a lot better? So I'm going to take a little bit of cream. I'm going to drizzle it around here. There you go. And I have chosen to put a little bit of chopped scallions on the top. And you can put anything you'd like. You can put a little basil, a little fresh tarragon. I mean, whatever it looks good. Is that amazing? Ah, pretty, pretty, pretty. So there we go. Homemade cream of tomato soup. Just fantastic. Make this today. It does not take as long as you would think, and it's so easy to do. All right. Enjoy.